everybody. Welcome to Arrow on Target. We are your hosts.
You can find us on Twitter at Stay on Target Pod.
Yep.
Online at stayontargetpodcast.com.
Usually
Why
you
is
do the other
everything so-
side, Chris. Usually you do the first part of the intro. I do the second part where I plug the site. So
Not on these.
not on these. Yeah, you're right.
Usually you start these.
Usually it's the opposite.
We've been gone for far too long.
Far too
It's
long.
been since before Christmas that we've done an Arrow on Target and Flash on Target.
That's true. In fact, this is the episode of Arrow on Target where we're talking about the return.
Yes.
Which it was epic, dude.
Called Left Behind.
Left Behind.
Yes. We've been gone. We were gone.
This
if
is
you
true.
listen to our main podcast, we will not bore you with the details again, but we were at Disney running races. John was in California running races.
Getting sweet medals. I'm going to show you on the for the YouTube folks.
We should have done this on the other podcast.
We should have, but we don't do a video on the other podcast.
That's awesome.
I'm going to hold these up here, exclusive for the Arrow on Target.
The first one is the Star Wars 10K marathon.
there's that one.
Yep, that one. It's pretty awesome. It features a stormtrooper on a field of hyperdrive lines.
This is true. So we have that one. We have a bunch of others because we did the Dopey challenge.
And we'll show the dopey.
We'll show this is the big one.
This is for doing a 5K, 10K, half marathon, and marathon 4 days in a row. 48.6 miles, 4 days in a row.
This
through
is
all
true.
the Disney parks.
4 days, 4 theme parks, 48.6 miles.
Pretty
That's
insane,
what it says on the
dude.
back.
Pretty insane.
Dude, awesome, dude.
Yeah. So we've been busy doing that. That's why we're a week behind. But hopefully...
We are back. As long as Arrow is back and they don't do the whole, like, intermittent thing that they did last year around this time. Because I want to say, like, there was a lot of times whenever it was like, oh, there's an Arrow episode. No, there's not.
Yeah.
So hopefully the back half of this season is just as rapid fire as the first half has been.
Yeah.
And,
Yes. So, this episode...
holy cow.
Well, let me just
amazing.
stop and say, if you, for some reason, have skipped episodes and are listening to us before you watch the episode, stop right now, go back, pick up where you left off, because big spoiler things happen.
Big spoilery things.
That being said, moving on, Oliver is still dead. Okay. Oliver's not dead.
Okay. Yeah.
This is my biggest problem with this episode. I'm going to start off on the negative.
Okay.
Usually we start off on positive.
Okay, I've got a lot of positives to counteract your negatives,
man.
so let's start on the negative.
I loved this episode.
It was amazing.
It was great. Except for the fact where Oliver was never dead. How was he not dead? He got stabbed through the internal organs and pushed off of a cliff, and he landed
Chris,
about 150 feet down.
I want to go ahead and just lay this out there for you and say that you were right, though. At the beginning, or at the mid-season finale episode of Arrow on Target, Chris made the prediction that he is not dead, and that his friend, who is in, I can't remember his name right now, because he has two of them, is in, who is with Raish, saves him.
Yes.
And you made that prediction.
I did.
It came true.
It did.
And you were right.
Yeah.
I had kind of thought that maybe that would have happened, but it would happen and it would be for some nefarious purpose of Raish. Like Raish wanted him to save him and like that whole situation.
Yeah.
It's also interesting that we don't actually have confirmation or denial of what's it called? The Lazarus Pit.
No. I don't... basically, his wife... What are their names? Man.
I've got to find him out. Let me look him up. So continue talking.
Okay, so like the wife of Oliver's friend,
The guy with two names.
the guy with two names, with Raish or Ra's al Ghul. I want to call him Ra's because they only call him Raish whenever they're talking in whatever language that is.
Yeah,
on the show at least.
I think only
they
he
always call
refers
him
to
Ra's.
himself. Yeah.
We should just call him Ra's.
Well,
That works in my brain.
I'll
better.
continuously calling him whatever flips up on the deck. Top,
All right,
you know.
it's like a random,
it's like
card deck.
Yeah, it's like there's a 50-50 chance, maybe more like a 40-40 chance with a 20% chance I just call him something completely stupid.
Yes.
Anyway.
His wife somehow, like he implied that what had happened was the wound had missed the vital organs or something like that, and he was cold enough that his body was preserved in some kind of low power state, and so he could save his life. And his wife, who I guess is some kind of medical magician, can bring him back to life.
Yeah.
Or not back to life. He said back to life.
Yeah, basically.
Then he implied that he was never dead in the first place.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, he was so close. Yao Fei is
Yao
his
Fei.
name. I'm going to try to find her name here now. Scrolling down. Why is there so many people in this cast? How dare you have so many people in your show?
Well, he killed a lot of people in the first season.
That's very true. There's a lot of dead bodies on this show, which we didn't add to the body count yet. What did you think of the new bad guy?
Okay, so let's start in. Beside my complaint about the fact that he's not actually dead, I loved seeing Starling City and Team Arrow operating without Oliver. It was cool to see like what roles they fulfill, what they can actually do, how they react. Felicity's reaction was a little overboard. It's kind of like, I understand, you're all emotional and afraid everyone around you is going to get killed, but man, like, don't put the mission in jeopardy because of that. Like,
yeah, later on in the game, whenever Diggle's...
Well, that, and then her decision to, abandon the team. Like,
that's
come
true.
on. That's
yeah.
so ridiculous.
It does seem in character for her, but it's a massive overreaction. You do have... I liked initially off the bat that we saw that it so easily, the show, it was interesting how easily it switched from a show about Oliver Queen and Arrow to an ensemble show.
Yeah.
It was so amazing. It felt like it was just, having fun with it.
Yeah.
Whenever you have Diggle with the Arrow suit on, which was amazing.
That was amazing.
And you've got Roy running around doing his thing. And then, even later on in the show, whenever we have I guess at the end of the episode, you had Laurel kind of join the crew there. I enjoyed seeing a lot of these other sides that we haven't really investigated much this season because we've been spending a lot of time with Oliver. It was nice to see him kind of set aside. We did have like the 3 storylines going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an interesting thing that upped the pace of the show, I think. Where you had, obviously Oliver trying to heal. You had the team trying to put things back together and figure out who they are without Oliver. And then you have the flashbacks in the past, which are some of the coolest flashbacks that we've had on this season to date.
Oh, yeah.
They meant a lot, too. Because now you have a real reason to care about his relationship with Yao Fei, as well as Tatsu is her name. Tatsu Yamashiro is her name on the show. So we have reasons to care about his relationships to them now because he's hanging with them.
Right.
And they're just integrated into this Ra's al Ghul relationship that he has.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot of reasons to care about those back past the flashbacks now, and I liked that. So like the pacing was really good. In fact, I actually kind of like was making the point that the pacing on this episode, if we go back to the pacing that we've had on some of the previous episodes of this season, it will feel slower. So there is that. Like, it upped the game so much to the point, like, cinematography-wise and just the way things were being shot, it upped the game quite a bit to where I was like, this is by far one of the most intense episodes we've had ever.
Oh, because it felt like a fleshed out world, and honestly, it feels like Gotham City.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, like, in the way, more in the Nolan version of Gotham City.
Yeah.
In the way that the villains are manipulating the government, the city officials, the police, to basically let them run their own part of the city, their own section of the city. And, just even the whole heist, of the
files.
Like,
yeah. It's like and the funny thing was about that was like they scripted this thing so you have no idea what's going on. Like, he's got something up his sleeve and this guy's super evil.
Yeah.
But it's like you have no idea what's going on. And I love the twist of the fact that he's going after these Arrow related things because there's no witnesses.
Right.
It's like they can't call him to the stand in order to testify against these people. So the evidence is literally the only thing keeping them in jail.
Yeah.
And so without that, they're out on the street.
I also love the thought that, like, man, okay, so they've spent the last 8 months putting these guys away, and then in a second, that whole entire legacy is gone.
Yeah.
Oliver's legacy is gone, and just that sense of despair is just, man, it's palpable. You can feel it.
Yeah, dude, it was nuts. Like, and Brick as a bad guy, just the way at the end of the episode, whenever he's like monologuing there to those guys, and that we're following him around with those shots, it's just so cool.
Yeah.
Such a good bad guy.
Yeah, I agree.
I really hope we keep him around for quite some time.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. I loved even like short, small little pieces, like whenever, I can't. This is the thing. I watched both these episodes together, and so I'm trying to remember which
trying
one's
to separate them. This one they didn't do anything with like the mayor or anything like that. This was not that episode.
Right.
So
the gun, like whenever it was obviously fooled with so that it didn't shoot straight, because Diggle would have nailed him right in the head.
Oh yeah, well, and even the other guy, he's like inches from him, and he gets him in the shoulder or whatever. And it's like, holy cow, and so like you wonder, where did this gun come from? What's the history? He said, this is my gun, or this is the gun I made my first kill with.
Right.
I want to see that story at some point, or maybe you don't need to. Maybe you can just imagine it. Maybe that's builds like the authenticity of this world is the fact that I can create this narrative with this guy in my head, and it's totally okay.
The thing I liked about it that made it feel real is like this is a street level criminal.
Oh yeah.
He's super bad, but he's still a street level. He's not like Slade who had superpowers,
right?
And, had the connection to Oliver from the island. It's not Malcolm Merlin who is like this expert archer, and has access to all these resources. Like this is basically a crime lord.
Yeah. And
I love just the fact that like this is the guy who is taking over the city in Arrow's place or in his absence. And it's really crazy to think that like, man, this is really what your city's come to.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me that we started with gangsters and people who were trying to run the city and people who were trying to do crazy things in the in what's that area of town? The
Glades.
The Glades. So now to bring this full circle with an even bigger threat.
Yeah.
That it's like this is, it didn't do any good to take out all these other people. In fact, it probably did like bad things because now all these crazy people are out on the street and they have a grudge and like they're out to get you. So I don't know. It's like it's really an interesting play and I love it.
Yeah.
Something I didn't like this episode, going back a little bit to the negative. While it was a necessary scene and it revealed some interesting details that I've already said that I liked, the courtroom scenes are still just painfully overdramatic. Like immediately whenever the judge is in there, it's like they're doing these dramatic glares and they're like pausing before things. It was so unrealistic that it took me out of it. I loved the camera shots. I loved the way that scene was shot with the circular camera going around Laurel and like panning in and zooming in. But you can do all of those things and still deliver the lines and still have your actors deliver the lines with a believability about them.
Yeah.
Like you look at any courtroom scene like from like The Good Wife or like from Law and Order even, and they just deliver those same lines really normally and very callously, and it's like, oh, I object, whatever, as opposed to I object, I'm outraged, and all of this like weirdness. So that was the only downside to that scene. Again, there was a lot of cool information that you learn in that scene.
Right.
But
I disagree to a certain extent in that what I didn't like about the courtroom scene or the whole entire courtroom episode last year was not necessarily even the dialogue or the way it was delivered. It was the fact that like they were doing things that lawyers do not do.
Right.
And saying things that lawyers do not say. And like it felt so unrealistic.
I gotcha.
And far removed from reality that it was laughable.
Yeah.
It was like a parody.
Yeah.
It was like you were parodying what lawyers do.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, it was kind of blown out of proportion, but like that's kind of how they write this show a lot of times.
That's true.
And overreaction is kind of like they use it with the bad guys. They use it with you think about even we just talked about how Felicity overreacted. And so it's kind of like your emotions like. Any emotion is just like wildly off the chart.
You're up and you're down.
But at least it was short enough and it accomplished what it needed to accomplish.
For sure.
It'd be without being overly heavy-handed.
Yeah. It was, the only thing that, again, like I said, the only thing, like the dialogue was all solid. It was exactly what people would say. It was just delivered in like a weird way that kind of took me out of it for a moment.
I think the thing that it did do, was it gives Laurel some ground to stand on. Like you actually see her in her element.
Oh yeah.
Like rather than just like we see her all the time trying to train to be a fighter and screwing up when she's fighting like she did in this one. It's just kind of like Well, it just doesn't do anything for her character. You know, like it makes you just be like, well, she is just an idiot all the time. She's supposed to be this lawyer, and then you actually see her be a lawyer, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, and this episode, like, I want to say there was no point in this episode where I didn't like Laurel, which is honestly probably the first episode that's happened where it's like there's not I mean, she was done well enough, and she like has come to this point in this emotional point where it's like everything she says is spot on to me on this episode.
Yeah,
because she was one of the ones that kind of stood up and was like, no, Oliver came back from the dead the first time.
Yeah,
he's gonna come back again. You know, it's like this is the voice of reason to these people who are just kind of falling apart.
Right.
So I mean, like that I loved. I loved Laurel being that role and being this stability to step in there. At the end of the episode and be like, I'm gonna take this. You know, it's like I'm gonna do this on without Oliver.
Even though she didn't know how to do it.
Right. Even though it's like this first thing was just like, just hit him with the bow staff or whatever, and then that's the end of the scene. Yeah. It's like that still means something. You know, it still does something for her. And her character in my mind, like it just at least her intending the right things and having the right mentality finally.
Right.
It's coming back around to where I actually kind of like her.
Yeah.
So let me see what else I have. Oh man, the music of this episode was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It was so good, dude. Whenever Oliver goes into the in the flashback sequences, whenever they break the window and he kind of goes into this place to steal something, that soundtrack there I just got chills.
Yeah.
So
it was very Nolan-esque. It had these really like low, just kind of like horn blares, you know. It's just like, man, this is super cool.
Subtle, like little beats with like just random stuff here and there interspersed. It was crazy. What do you think that Thea put it together that Roy is hanging with the arrow? What do you think about that?
Okay, so I think it's pretty natural. Like, she's not an idiot, and like, she's figured out a lot of things. I think it's still so stupid that she hasn't figured out that Oliver is the arrow.
Do you think that she hasn't though? Do you really think that at this point, like, she hasn't doesn't at least suspect that that's possible?
She might suspect it. I don't know. But like, I don't know. It's really dumb. Is this the episode where Malcolm told her to go to leave? No, that's next episode.
No, that's next episode.
All right, I'll see something later.
Yeah.
Is this the one where someone?
Is this the one where?
Is this the one where?
Oh man. So the Laurel and Diggle scene at the end of this episode, where she again. This is another moment where Laurel shone in this episode, and it was actually where Diggle's kind of like falling apart a little bit, and she kind of helps him a little bit. She just kind of listens and then hugs him, at the end. And I was like, man, Laurel's just on fire this episode. So yeah, I did want to say this. There were a few shots in the warehouse fight that were just spot on.
Oh man.
And like even whenever like it's this heist thing where they run they bring up the truck and then the camera comes in low and pans and follows them in, which is a very Nolan-esque kind of shot where you're following someone into the action with a handheld.
Yeah.
And then they're going from shelf to shelf, and there's different scenes, and it was very cinematic.
Well, think about
it's just
Roy whenever he's running through that pipe thing.
I got chills there.
And then he comes out and jumps up and like ends up on the top of it.
Yeah, he smashes this dude in the face, ends up on top of it, jumps down, shoots an arrow at that guy, and then jumps to the floor. And
super
it's like,
cool scene.
What?
Yeah. Props to the stuntmen who were pulling that off. That was amazing.
Oh, dude, and the director for like kind of putting that together.
Yeah.
That whole scene, and then Diggle kind of slides underneath the truck and with all the bullet fire going. Yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah, honestly, like it just felt like the production value and everything was just kind of heightened on this episode and the next episode. Like, and I don't know why. Like, is this like the new norm? I hope so.
You would hope so. I do know why this episode was so as big as it was, or as intense as it was. And it was Stephen Amell posted on his Facebook, and he said this. It's a rather long post, but I think it deserves being read most of the way through here. And he says, "Hey Facebook, my good buddy and our fearless director has a message for everyone, and I happily agreed to be his platform, so here you go. Dear Arrow fans, first of all, I would like to thank Steven for giving me space on his Facebook page to reach so many of you. I'm pleased with the response to Left Behind. Sadly, it will be the last one I direct this season, and I am so proud of that episode and appreciative of the fine job the Arrow writing team did with the script as always. The cast, as always, or as usual, was exceptional, And even though this was an Oliver Light episode, and his absence was surely felt, really, Steven, everyone hit it out of the park. I would like to share something with you. We had a day on the show that was up there with my most challenging ever. It was it was the day we shot the Diggle Arsenal shootout with Brick and his men. That was the day that on paper was not makeable. Not only did I want to make it, but I wanted it to be epic and amazing. It was a day that needed to be scheduled like clockwork, with the assistant directors, camera, lighting, grips, and art department, stunts, and special effects working in complete harmony for 14 hours, at which point producers would pull the plug on me. It all needed to be efficient, safe, and visually dynamic. We did it. And the magic ingredient that made it happen was simple. Passion. Everyone on the Arrow cast and crew has such passion, it makes me misty just thinking about them when I'm not there. They are all as heroic as Oliver Queen. This is a hard show. They spend 12 to 16 hours a day away from their families, working their butts off in all kinds of weather and conditions because they care. They are true artists, and I could not be more thankful to all of them. On a long, hard day in October, they gave me everything they had. We got it done. One of the most amazing action sequences I've ever been a part of. And there you go. So he says, these guys, he names some names here, and he says, these guys and many others make Arrow happen for you every week. Thank you all for watching and being so passionate yourselves. It makes it all worth it. Glenn Winter.
It's awesome. Why is he not directing the rest?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he has some other gig. Maybe
That's
maybe he's doing something else. Maybe he's moving on to other things. Maybe he'll be returning next season. Who knows? There's all sorts of factors. But definitely this episode, because it's kind of his swan song for the season,
Yeah.
I mean, he nailed it. In October, I don't know that they knew that they were picked up for season 4. Mm-hmm. So it potentially could have been, if they hadn't gotten picked up, his last episode ever. And so, at the moment where they filmed this and actually did all this, he it could have been the last episode. So, I mean, that could have been running through his mind as well. You know, it's all of those things. So
yeah, and with that being said, too, though, like the next episode, which we'll talk about in the next episode of Arrow on Target, still had I feel like the production value was still heightened.
Oh yeah, it definitely was, and I definitely think that my note was that basically I feel like they've upped the game for the back half of the season. Like we are now on the downhill towards whatever we've got going on, because we've got two of the most intense bad guys that we've ever seen on this show before. Mm-hmm. While Slade was pretty bad, he still had kind of this air about him where he wasn't going to hurt Oliver, he wasn't going to hurt somebody,
right?
Or there were people that he wasn't going to go after,
right?
But like Brick, who knows what that guy's going to do,
right? And
then with Raish, who knows what that guy's going to do whenever he finds out that Oliver isn't dead. You just don't know.
We'll find out that Oliver isn't dead, and finds out that Malcolm Merlyn is unprotected now. Well, he knows he's unprotected. He's going to come after him.
I mean, that's happening for sure. So yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, that about covers it for this episode. I do have some quotes. Do you want the quotes?
Quotes.
All right, here come the quotes. Diggle says, "I'm more of a Glock kind of guy." And then Roy says, "I didn't say anything." After he shoots the arrow or whatever and misses a few times.
Yes.
Yeah, it was funny. Anyway, then we have, this was an interesting reference from Ray Palmer, who says, "Clowns always freaked me out as a kid." And I was thinking, Joker? This is like, slipping in these like clown things. It's like, you don't just do that in the DC universe and not think about the Joker.
That's true.
Anyway, and like you said, this episode felt very Gotham-esque, where it's like, Brick could be like, you slide the, something like the Joker or some other Batman villain in there. It's like he's just as vicious. We have to Thea. I wouldn't recommend texting in a real fight from Malcolm.
Yeah.
And then we have, Oliver's been dead before, he'll be back again. That full quote, I think I have that full quote right down here. Here we go. Here, and this, I'll wrap up on these two. We have Diggle, who says, "It's funny, he was worried something would happen to me whenever he went and was his bodyguard." Mm-hmm. And then,
even a few episodes ago, he was saying, don't go out and fight with us, you have a family now, blah, 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 all that stupid stuff.
Yeah, dude, for sure. And then we have the best line in my mind. There was this one, 9 months to put him away, 9 minutes to let him out. But then we have, this isn't the first time that I've heard Oliver was dead. He's been back before, he'll be back again. That was a good one. Mm-hmm. Dude, such a great episode. Hoods up, hoods down.
Hoods up, for sure.
Hoods up.
I don't think we've had a hoods down episode this season.
Nope. There's really only the one in my mind. It's just that one.
Courtroom.
Yeah, the courtroom one last season.
Yeah. So you can find us online at stayontargetpodcast.com. We will have another episode posting at the same time as this for Midnight City or something like that. I don't remember what it's called.
Okay.
The next episode. You can find us on Twitter at ChrisWright250.
And JohnWright777.
Make sure if you follow Flash on Target or follow The Flash, that you listen to our Flash on Target podcast.
Absolutely.
We talk about that show as well.
Yeah.
That's it for this week. This time. We'll see you next time on
Arrow on Target.